schools. This time we have 3 teams left, kind of ACC, with Wake Forest, Virginia Tech today, Wake Forest tomorrow, Notre Dame probably on Thursday. Craig?
Yeah, that's not kind of ACC. That is the ACC. Those are ACC schools.
Notre Dame, yeah.
No, they're basically an ACC school as much as you can be without being one. But the other 2 you mentioned are definitely in the ACC, so that's where we are. And we're in Blacksburg today to just take a glimpse at the 2025 Virginia Tech Hokies football schedule, and a program that has certainly lost its luster from its golden era under Frank Beamer and the late 90s, early 2000s, Metallica blaring, and just all of the craziness of playing in Blacksburg. Like, there's still elements of that, but Paul, from an ACC perspective, like, have you seen kind of a hit when it comes to Virginia Tech and just their presence?
It's not the same at all. Like, it's like they were intimidating, man. And you know what? They've been good in the ACC in their early going, but since Frank Beamer left, I really do hate that. I think about it all the time. Miami's been worse in the ACC than they were in the Big East. Big East losing football was ultimately a bad thing. I think West Virginia was great in that league. I mean, they had a good league, but Big East in football, they're really good. Louisville was good, so it's sad that one went away. But yeah,
and their basketball conference lost those same teams, but were able to recoup some of them in basketball.
And that's what they had to lead into. But they're just not intimidating in that same way anymore. I mean, whether you were going to Blacksburg or they were coming to play you knew that you were in for a bare knuckle brawl with them. They were going to block kicks. They were going to hit the quarterback. They were going to do all these things. They were going to run the ball. They were going to control the game. And then when they had dynamic players like Mike Vick and all that, they were just super scary. And it's just not been that.
And they were always that Thursday night team too. Like, you see them on on a Thursday night, and it's Michael Vick or whoever running the show, and Beamer ball and all of that. And it just hasn't been that. But Brett Pry, coming off of a 6-7 season, they lost in the Duke's Mayo Bowl, but it was the second consecutive postseason appearance for them. Minnesota, though, beat them, so they didn't get to bring home the bowl trophy as they had the year prior with the Military Bowl when they finished 7-6. His first year, 3-8. So 3-8, 7-6 in a Military Bowl win, then 6-7 in a Mayo Bowl loss last year. It's year 4 for Brent Pry, and you got to think they got to be having conversations about him and the future and the long term of Virginia Tech football. But you got Kyron Drones back at quarterback for starters. That's going to be a really nice piece to have, and very excited to see what he does. So how do they follow up 6-7? Well, they'll open the season on Sunday, August the 31st, Sunday night game right out of the gates, and it'll be the Aflac kickoff for Mercedes-Benz in Atlanta, Georgia, South Carolina, and Virginia Tech. So big SEC opponent. Big kickoff game, big neutral site game right out of the gates, Gamecocks and Hokies. And, of course, we're expecting South Carolina to be pretty good with Lenora Sellers leading the way. It ought to be a good little quarterback duel. So South Carolina up first in Atlanta, and then a second consecutive SEC opponent as they will then take on Diego Pavia and the Vanderbilt Commodores there in week 2, Saturday, September the 6th. That'll be their home opener as they return from Atlanta. And then the following week, as the non-conference continues on, you've got Old Dominion in Blacksburg on Saturday, September the 13th. And then the following Saturday, still in Blacksburg, haven't left since that opening game, 3 consecutive home games as they will take on the Wofford Terriers on Saturday, September the 20th. And we'll leave it there just for the non-con purposes. But South Carolina neutral site, Vandy at home, Old Dominion at home, and Wofford at home. That is the first 4 games up for Brent Pry and the Hokies.
That's a good shot to be 2-2 or 3-1. I would think. I think South Carolina is going to be a lot for them.
What about Pavia and Vanderbilt?
Yeah, and Pavia and Vanderbilt should be kind of a lot for them. That's at home. And so you think that's maybe a little bit there. Pavia and Vanderbilt beat them last year, early in the year in the same, I think, spot, second game of the schedule. So, but they've got to be minimum 2-2 out of that to build some momentum. And they've got an okay schedule at the beginning to build some momentum, but it's tougher at the end.
This will be the first meeting with South Carolina and Virginia Tech since 1991, which was a 28-21 South Carolina win in Columbia as Sparky Woods and the Gamecocks defeated Frank Beamer and his Hokies back there in 1991. So they have not played in a really long time, and they will get to it right there at the beginning of the season. So that ought to be a really fun game between those two. But, yeah, back-to-back SEC opponents. And then you close it out, as I said, with Wofford there in the non-conference. But still no break so far. You go August 31st, September 6th, September 13th, September 20th, and straight on into conference play. And you will open things up in the ACC on the road at North Carolina State. Then the following week, you are back at home in Blacksburg as you take on Wake Forest. Then back on the road the following week as you go back to Atlanta for the second time, because remember you played them. You played South Carolina there at Mercedes-Benz Stadium, but this time you're at Bobby Dodd to take on the home team, Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets, and hopefully a healthy Haynes King. Although if you're Virginia Tech, you're probably hoping not, because that'll definitely hurt your chances if he's full go. But you go to play Georgia Tech, and then you finally, after, 7 consecutive games. Am I reading that right? 7 consecutive games to start the season. I believe that's correct. Yep. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 consecutive. You finally get your first break after playing Georgia Tech there in middle of October.
Yeah, this is where it starts to get a little tougher for them on the schedule. They should match up well with NC State and Wake Forest. I think Georgia Tech is going to be in contention for the conference championship game all year. I really do. I think what Brent Key's doing there is really good, and they're a step ahead of where Virginia Tech is right now.
Yes, so there you go. You get a break after 7 consecutive games to start the season, and then you play one game, or then you get the break, and then you play Cal on Friday, October the 24th. So you had a Sunday game to start the season, and now you get a Friday game as you will take on Cal. Fortunately, not going all the way across the country. That is there in Blacksburg. The following week, you open up the month of November back on a Saturday and back at home again as you take on Louisville in ACC play. And then you get your second and final bye week before a 3-game stretch to close out the season. So bye week, Friday game against Cal at home, Saturday game against Louisville at home. And I mean, between Atlanta and Blacksburg, they only have one game outside of those two locations at this point in the schedule, because they've only got the trip to Raleigh. They got 2 games in Atlanta, and all the rest of them at this point are at home, except for the trip to Raleigh to take on NC State. So yeah, a bye week that is kind of strange in that it's just got a couple games sandwiched in between there with Cal and Louisville. After you get back from your second bye week, you will close out the season at Florida State on Saturday, November the 15th. Then Miami at home on Saturday, November 22nd. And then the final game on the schedule, Virginia Cavaliers on the road in Charlottesville on Saturday, November the 29th. There is their regular season schedule.
All right, Paul, FSU must be really appears to be better next year. I've seen a lot of teams have to have the bye week before playing them.
I guess so. I don't know.
Just giving you hope, man.
I don't know.
Giving you hope.
But no, I actually think that's one of the more winnable games on FSU schedule. But again, all remains to be seen. Miami at the end of the year, man. When Virginia Tech, West Virginia, and Miami were all in the Big East too, that was like when that kind of like circle would play each other, and of course you throw a Pitt in there, like that was also really cool. But yeah, this is tough when you got Louisville, then going to the Doak, then playing Miami, and then of course the rivalry game at the end. As those kind of 4 games in a row, that's tough. But they don't have to go to the West Coast, like Craig said. They go to Raleigh and Tallahassee and Charlottesville.
So nothing other than East Coast.
No, yeah, they're on.
Nothing in the Central. Yeah.
They don't change time zones the whole year. They will fly in and out of the same airport all the time. Like it's, all of that. They don't have to worry about any of it. So, not a bad schedule setup for them travel wise and opponent wise, to where and they almost beat Miami last year. They really they're,
they showed signs of being a pretty good team at times.
Yeah, they showed times. They just can't finish games, and like they, a lot of people thought that they did beat Miami. It was up to the review that was really, it could have gone either way. And they lost on a review at the end of the game, just how it goes. But yeah, they should. I mean, Brent Pry needs to make them better. This schedule gives them some time to maybe run out a little bit, but they got to
not
finish.
with South Carolina, the opener though.
Well, I mean, at least
yeah.
After that, I think that they've got a chance to be competitive and get on a little bit of a run, which they need to do. Because if they don't and they just keep trading wins and losses, then they're going to move on and find another coach.
They were competitive in most of their games. They had some overtime losses. They had, you said the Miami game, like they could have been 2-3 wins better if the luck was on the other side of the coin. So yeah, that's where they were competitive, but it just didn't always go their way. But you mentioned no West Coast road trips. They don't play Clemson. They don't play SMU. They don't play Syracuse. They don't play North Carolina, Notre Dame, Pitt, Duke. Boston College, I think, is the full list of the teams they don't play. So you do miss out on 2, 3, 4, maybe even teams that you think might be near the top of the standings. Certainly Clemson. You'd think probably SMU, Syracuse, but don't know for sure. But yeah, they will play Miami and FSU and Louisville and Georgia Tech and so on and so forth. But you do get a fair share of games that you miss out on that would be pretty big time opponents. So maybe that works out in their favor as well. Not seeing Clemson or SMU or whoever. But yeah, there you go. There is the schedule for Virginia Tech, and you think there's definitely some pressure there for Brent Pry to get this thing moving in a very clear upward trajectory at this point, year 4.
I think that Vanderbilt needs to get a better logo. Virginia's got I love the cross swords.
I think Vandy just changed that a few years ago, actually. Like they updated it, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. Yep. So there we are. Okay, Craig, thank you very much. Wake Forest tomorrow. Are they still the Demon Deacons?
Yes.
Is that right? They're allowed to be called that?
Yes.
I'm just curious.
Yes.
And then, of course, Notre Dame, the Fighting Irish, that Garrett swears as part of the ACC, will have them.
For everything but football, so.
It's
a nice transitional thing.
The football schedule we're talking about.
Yeah, but it's a nice transitional thing. And look,